And on the domestic front, Hollande is dealing with the fallout from his girlfriend's infamous tweet. And for the latest on that, I'm joined by our press reviewer, Elena Casas. Hello, Elena. So what's on the front pages today, then?
Hello, Claire. Well, of course, it's still Triola's tweet that's dominating most of the news here in France. Ségolène Royal has used a front-page interview in Libération to fire back. Of course, the famous tweet was supporting the dissident socialist Olivier Forlani, who's running against Royal in her bid to become parliamentary deputy for Charente-Maritime, for La Rochelle. Now, she on the front page says, "I never give myself up for beaten." That's in response not only to Triola supporting her adversary, but a poll in that was done in that constituency, which puts him on 58% of votes, which would mean she'd be thrashed, really, if that's the actual result on Sunday. She says, though, that that's just because the right and the UMP have called on their voters to back him as part of a personal attack against her, just wanting to embarrass her. As far as the famous tweet is concerned, she says that she didn't want to react in any kind of emotional way or react too hastily to such a personal, violent insult, she calls it. And she doesn't really use this opportunity to attack Triola personally. The meanest thing, really, that she says is that she just wants to be respected as a politician and she doesn't want her private life on front pages. So she's kind of retained her dignity and a bit of the moral high ground there. The paper's editorial says they certainly don't have much time for Triola and her personal tweeting, and even less for Olivier Forlani, that dissident socialist who's running against her, who says should realise that he's lost this contest really already. Even though he might actually win the constituency, he'll have torn apart the local party so much that it's a disastrous way for anyone to behave.
All of this is quite a political opportunity for the right, though, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Le Figaro has jumped onto it, the right-wing paper. They've got trouble at the summit of the state as a headline today. The editorial does say, in what I must say is not a very feminist way, that if François Hollande can't control the woman in his life, then how on earth can he be expected to run the state? They do really emphasise how much this could affect his public image. Of course, they're a right-wing paper. They want to make things look as bad for him as possible. But it's hard to disagree with their conclusion when they say that one of his main campaign themes when he was running for president was how much the French had disliked the way that Sarkozy put his private life into the public sphere and how his love life ended up making front pages, something that's not very traditionally French, that voters certainly were not keen on, and they're unlikely to be any more enamoured of Hollande's complicated personal life making front pages. It's fairly clear to say. Le Monde has actually told Valérie Trierweiler to stop tweeting in its editorial on their front page. They say that, of course, she's got this difficult balancing act between her personal life and her career. Her career, of course, once as a political journalist, she's insisted she wants to keep on working as a journalist. She's writing cultural columns for Paris Match. And they say that for Trierweiler, it might seem like a kind of feminist argument that she should have the right to continue working regardless of who she's married to. But she should realise, they say in that editorial, that that's not really what it's about. Her personal situation isn't very like that of a lot of women who are trying to balance career and family. When you're married to the head of state, or living with, rather, it's a completely different thing. She needs to stop trying to work as a journalist, they say, stop trying to manipulate the media and delete her Twitter account.
Now, that's using up a lot of ink in the papers, but of course it's not the only story. And France isn't the only country gearing up for parliamentary elections this weekend.
Yes, of course, the Greek election coming up on Sunday is probably a much bigger story in terms of the fact that it could actually lead to the complete collapse of the euro. And La Croix, a paper that normally does keep itself above the melee of political argument here in France, has gone for putting Greece on its front page, Europe suspended in animation, waiting for the result of the Greek vote. Now, they do say, of course, that this is important because it looks like left-wing coalition Syriza is leading those polls. And if they really win, as their leader Alexis Tsipras has promised not to keep the promises that the previous government made in terms of the austerity measures they're supposed to stick to, the EU and IMF have said they will stop paying Greece's bailout money. And the situation there is quite disastrous already. There's some fairly worrying horror stories in the newspaper about hospitals having to stop non-essential operations because they've run out of anaesthetic or bandages, or even being unable to feed their patients.
Oh, that's very concerning. All right, thank you very much, Elena, for running us through the French newspapers.